talking about. And I have some evidence here to show you that I'm right, in part, about why. Happy to have you with us. The telephone number is 800-282-2882. And if you want to send an email, it's lrushbo@eibnet.us. Virginia Republicans have defeated the Democrat bill allowing abortions up until birth. Virginia Republicans killed legislation that would have loosened abortion restrictions after the bill's sponsor admitted that it would allow the procedure even after a mother went into labor, even after a baby was born, according to the bill's author and the enlightened governor of the state of Virginia. The author of the bill is Virginia Delegate Kathy Tran. She submitted the bill, or a bill, to save caterpillars on the same day as her late state abortion bill. I'm not kidding. You know what I was thinking about the other day? Actually, last night. Isn't the worst charge that the Democrats have been able to make, that they've come up with against Trump over the last 2 years? What is it? Let me just ask you, if you can think of something on your own before I reveal the big answer. What is, and it's a tough question. I mean, there might be legitimate arguments over which answer is the most correct. But what is the biggest charge against Trump over the last 2 years? What is the one thing they've said that the media has amplified, promoted all over the country, has not let it go? It resurfaces over and over and over again. And I'm going to throw out Trump-Russia collusion because that's an automatic, and there's nothing to compete with that. But in terms of Trump's performance as president, what is the one thing that stands above all else that they have routinely roasted Trump for? Come on, folks, this is easy. Separating children from their mothers at the border. Remember that? The Democrats in the media were shocked. They were outraged over American immigration policy as authored by Donald Trump that would separate babies from their mothers, that would separate families. Never mind the fact that it's an Obama-era policy, and never mind the fact that Obama's administration separated more families than Trump could ever hope to because Obama was in office for 8 years. Well, what is separating a baby from her mother? Abortion. Now, I know what you're saying, but Rush, there's a big abortion. The woman is choosing to do it, and in immigration, the woman is not. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You see the moral equivalence here. So the governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, is saying he's been taken out of context with his statement. Let me grab that statement. It's late in the list here. Let me find it. Grab soundbite number 9. This is what we aired yesterday. A lot of people are airing this. And he says that this is out of context.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.
Now, what the governor says that's not included in that bite is what he said prior to it. And he claims that he's talking about babies with deformities, babies with brain diseases, lack of brain activity, Down's syndrome, and other defects. And while he did say that, he's not wrong about that, but he did not specify only those circumstances. He was all in. He did mention those in a long list of justifications for snuffing out the life after making them. What is it with Democrats and making people comfortable before you kill them? You remember the ABC had this televised 1-hour special from the White House back during the Obama administration, where Obama was going to answer questions from the American serfs about health care. And a woman stood up. And I have said over and over again, when I saw this, I couldn't believe I was seeing it in America. But a woman stood up, an American citizen, and asked the President of the United States about her mother. Her mother was close to 100 years old and had a tremendous will to live, but needed some kind of surgery, maybe a new kidney or something, in order to live. And the woman wanted to know if under Obamacare, her mother would be allowed to get that procedure and continue living. And Obama looked right her in the eyes and said, no. I don't think in that situation we have to make a determination on who can't afford everybody. Went on and on and on, and finally said, situations like that, we would give them a pill and make them comfortable. And he said it just as professorially, matter-of-factly, without any emotion, without any empathy at all. I'm watching, and I'm just, first place, why is the President of the United States in charge of who lives and dies? Why is the President of the United States in charge of who gets access to health care and who doesn't? And then this particular president telling a citizen, your mom, how old is she? Nah. I think in that situation, because we can't do that for everybody, so we give her a pill, make her comfortable, and now we're going to give babies pills, I guess. We're going to make them comfortable before we wipe them out in Virginia and the state of New York. Now, I said double down. There are other states that want in on this. So I raised the question the other day, why? What in the name of Sam Hill? I think there's a number of factors in addition to their hatred for us. I think in the last number of years, the states have had some success imposing limitations on abortion providers like Planned Parenthood. And I think it's angered them like nothing. I think the Project Veritas videos, which documented proof that Planned Parenthood was aborting, killing babies, and harvesting the body parts for sale. I think that the last 8 years have rocked them. I think state action against abortion, putting limits on the procedure, and then Kavanaugh being confirmed to the Supreme Court, and perhaps Trump getting another nominee to the Supreme Court has got them so freaked out over Roe versus Wade being overturned that they're trying to cram as much in right now as they can to make it impossible to dial this back, to roll it back, to make it impossible for any restrictions to be implanted. Because once you say that a woman who intends to abort her baby has the right to end that baby's life even while the baby is being born, during the birth process or afterwards, once you say that, we're not talking about abortion anymore. We're talking about infanticide. But I think in addition to those things, it still stands to reason these people have so much hatred for us, and those things I just gave you add to the hatred. They hate Kavanaugh. They hate Trump. They hate conservative judges that might roll back Roe versus Wade. They hate all these. They just hate. And they love just throwing it back in our face. They love cramming their corruption and their perversion and their sickness right down our throats. And it causes them to get into a standing O in the New York State Senate in celebration. In this state of Virginia, there's nobody apologizing. There's nobody standing up and trying to walk this back. There's no Democrat out there saying, wait a minute, this is not really what. No, they're all doubling down on this. Last night on the Fox News channel, Tucker Carlson had a guest who makes my point that these people are filled with an irrational hatred and rage, primarily for us and for men as a subset of us. Now, us being religion, God, the Catholic Church, Christianity at large, conservatives, the conservative movement. That's us, and that's who and what they hate. So let's go to the audio sound bites. We have Tucker Carlson interviewing Monica Klein. She is the founding partner of something called Seneca Strategies. And Tucker Carlson's question, I wonder what you think about what Dr. Northam, the governor of Virginia, said. The infant is born. There's a point where the mother and the physician can decide whether to kill the infant or not. I want you to listen to the anger and the hatred in this woman's voice. She hates Republicans. She hates Trump. She hates Kavanaugh. Tucker asks her, what do you think of what the governor of Virginia said?
Look, Tucker, I understand that you want to go back to a time where Roe v. Wade was illegal, where women were having back alley abortions, and they were using coat hangers to have abortions, which is actually what's barbaric.
I'm giving you time to make a real argument. I'm not arguing for the repeal of Roe v. Wade. And please don't be tiresome. The governor of Virginia, who's a rising star in the Democratic Party, just said this. There's pending legislation that mirrors it, and I'm asking you what you think of it.
Reproductive health care is under attack by the Republican Party. 72% of Americans support the right to choose, and yet we have Trump and we have sexual predator Kavanaugh trying to repeal Roe v. Wade and trying to take away our control over our own bodies. This isn't about babies. This isn't about health care. This is about you attempting to control women's bodies.
That is just, that's deranged. That is poisonous derangement. That is hatred on display. And by the way, Ms. Klein, this business about back alley abortions and coat hangers, you just legalized that in the state of New York. Did you not? Non-medical personnel can now perform abortions, including in the back alleys and including with coat hangers. And you know why that might be? You know why they might have had to put that provision in there? Because maybe they're not going to be able to find enough doctors willing to kill babies after they're born. Maybe they're not going to have enough doctors to kill babies while they're being birthed. But she's just nothing but a walking cliche. Well, after the baby is born, this is a great point, by the way, after the baby's born, it's got nothing to do with the woman's body. But you heard her say, this isn't about babies. This is about health care. This is about you attempting to control women's bodies. This isn't about babies. They have to say that in order to obliterate their conscience. It isn't. This is why, from the beginning, pregnancy has been an illness. It has been a disease. It has been a source of psychological disorders. Pregnancy is rape and incest. Pregnancy, women do not know what they're getting into when they get pregnant. It's a civil rights issue. It's a freedom issue. It's an anti-man issue. It's not about babies. This is about health care. This is about you. She's looking at Tucker Carlson. This is about you attempting to control women's bodies. Not after the baby's born, Monica. The woman's body is not a factor. And her retort is, if the woman wants to abort, you have nothing to say about it. She can abort whenever. Can she abort when the child is 2 if things aren't going well? Where does this end? So Carlson's getting very frustrated because she's just a walking bunch of hate-filled cliches. So he says, don't be a robot. This is the governor of Virginia saying this. I want to know what you think of it. Is that okay, or does any of this bother you?
It bothers me that you are attempting to control women's bodies. That's what you're doing. You are. The Republican Party right now is working overtime to repeal Roe v. Wade and to take away choice in every single state.
I wonder if you think you're convincing anybody, or if your unwillingness to address what just happened today on tape is a sign that you can't defend this. And if you can't defend it, I wonder why that is. As an American, as a woman, what do I think of that?
As a woman, what do I think of it? Have you asked yourself why you spend so much time talking about this rather than thinking about why your party is trying to repeal Roe v. Wade and control women's bodies? There are 7 states where there's only 1 abortion clinic. This is about a woman's right to choose, and you as a man should not have a single say in that.
Monica Klein who is incapable of discussing this in terms and within the context of the issue's current state and evolution. You hear these cliches, these bromides, woman's right to choose. This is how they've always sold this, as a freedom issue, as a civil rights issue, as a health issue. It's not about the babies. Well, see, this is what Monica doesn't get yet. In New York State and Virginia, it ain't about the babies. It is about the babies. It's about killing the babies as they're being born, as they are exiting the womb, or later. And she can't even get there. She's just got to continue to stay focused on the arguments they have always used to shut people down, arguments which are nothing more than allegations. Did Tucker Carlson say anything in this movie, in this interview here, about controlling her body or any other woman's body? But my point is, you heard the irrational hatred and rage. This is not some woman he dragged in off the street. This is a woman who heads a major pro-choice organization, abortion organization, called Seneca Strategies. She would be one of the de facto political leaders of this movement. So the anger and the hatred, she hates Republicans, she hates men, and it sounds like she hates babies.
The wonders of rock.
Hi, welcome back. Let me be clear about something. This is not just something happening in a couple of rogue Democrat states like New York and, in this case, Virginia. The proposal here by Kathy Tran, who is the Virginia delegate that has proposed this legislation that would allow the slaughtering of a baby while it's being born or afterwards. Sorry if the language bothers you, but what else are you going to call this? And that the governor now is defending, a licensed pediatrician is defending. This is part of a nationwide plan, folks, from elected Democrats in a lot of states. New York, where you've already heard the audio of standing ovations after it was announced that children can be aborted up to the due date, and that children can be aborted by non-medical personnel. Rhode Island has similar legislation. Vermont has similar legislation. New Mexico is getting in on this action. And their quest is to make it a constitutional right. In New York, it has been proclaimed constitutional now. All of that late-term abortions up to and including during birth, right for the due date, non-medical personnel. What are we going to call that, the fourth trimester? You know, we always use the terms these people use, and we debated on their terms. They get to set the language. That's why you can't call this murder. You can, no, this is abortion. It's unviable tissue mass and so forth. But they're trying to get late-term abortion passed all over this country very fast now. Welcome back to the EIB Network and Rush Limbaugh, the nation's most listened to radio talk show. Happy to have you with us. I just checked email during the break. Mr. Limbaugh, this is getting tiresome. I'm so tired of hearing about this issue, abortion. Why do we care? It's just a bunch of liberals killing their kids. And frankly, move on. I want to hear about the wall. I want to hear about some of these other. I'd rather hear about the NFL and the Super Bowl than this. It's actually a good question. I can't tell you the number of people over the years who've told me, you're wasting your time talking about this, Rush, because women are not going to stop doing this. No matter what happens, they're going to have abortions. You can't. It's been that way since the beginning of time. Let me state my objective here and purpose here. That's not really it. I don't have the power to tell people what to do and what not to do. That's, we do that via society, via our moral code and laws and public shaming and a number of other things like that. I'm not an autocrat. And I'm not even trying to guilt trip anybody, but I am posing something that I think is very, very consequential to our entire country and society. And folks, it is unmistakable that as life itself becomes cheapened and the sacrosanct respect for it disappears, none of us is worth anything to anybody. And if life is worth nothing, then nothing else is going to be worth anything, and it is going to cause, and I would submit to you it already has caused, I think abortion is a major factor in 12 to 15-year-olds murdering each other with guns all over this country. I think the wanton promotion of killing babies cannot possibly not have an impact over the course of years on everybody's perception of life and the importance of it. Then you get into who is worthy of living and who isn't. You start talking about, well, a child born into poverty, who would want to do that to a child? Well, go check the number of robust, successful, happy people born to poverty. But who are we to say these things? Somebody's born to poverty, it'd be better if they didn't live. It's not your decision. It's not anywhere in your purview. But if we start cheapening life, and I think we've been doing it since Roe versus Wade was legalized, made constitutional. Once it became a constitutional right to kill, then we started debating who else can we kill? Can we kill at the elderly spectrum of life? Can we kill people when we find out when they're in the womb they're going to be fat, freckle-faced, and redheaded, and the parents don't want a fat, freckle-faced, redheaded kid? Can we kill them? We're getting there. Wait until it is discovered that homosexuality is genetic. And wait until prospective parents can be told that their child might be gay at birth. You know who's going to do the fastest 180 from pro-choice to pro-life? The entire homosexual community is going to become pro-life overnight. We're already down this road toward genetic defects and deficiencies being identified. That's why this late term, but this governor sitting there saying, well, after the baby is born, we'll take a look here and see what kind of deficiencies might exist. What kind of we know most of these long before birth now because of the scientific advances that have taken place. I'm just telling you, you start cheapening life this way, and then you cheapen it even further by claiming a baby isn't even a person. A baby is not a human being. And folks, you're next. We're all next, depending on who these people are, how much power they get, and the basis on which they determine who gets to live and who doesn't. And what if down the road a bunch of liberals decide, rather than have to put up with a bunch of opposition, a bunch of conservatives, let's just wipe them out? You think that will never happen. It can't happen. Well, no, not tomorrow, but if this stuff doesn't stop in the next 30 years, did any of you ever think, even 10 years ago, that a major political party would be arguing for the right to kill a baby after it was born? If I had predicted that 10 years ago on this program and told you that, you all would have thought I'm nuts, and you would have demanded that I shut up. You don't want to hear such things. It's ridiculous. You're going way, way overboard, Rush. And yet here we are. And I want to make my point in another way. I mentioned Obama mere moments ago. See, I do care about societal values, cultural values. They're all we have. It's one of the many things that distinguish the United States from everywhere else in the world. And I'm telling you, the left is doing as much as it can to erase all of these differences that define American exceptionalism. We are the only nation on earth where in our founding documents, the right to life is considered a right and it's specified. The right to liberty, the right to happiness, the pursuit of happiness. There's no other country that has ever codified these things in government documents. We all take it for granted because we grew up with it, and it's not been any big deal. It's been the way things are. But those are the kinds of things that define American exceptionalism. Not that we're better people and not that we're smarter. That has nothing to do with American exceptionalism. But let's go back. This is 2009, so what is this, 10 years ago now? It actually 9.5 years ago. June of 2009, the famous ABC special, Prime Time, Questions for the President, Prescription for America. A member of the audience, Jane Sturm, stood up. Mr. President, my mother is now over 105, but at age 100, the doctor said to her, I can't do anything more unless you have a pacemaker. And I said, go for it. She said, my mother said, go for it. But the specialist said, no, she's too old. But when the other specialist saw her joy of life, how full of life she is, the other specialist said, okay, I'll put it in. I'm going for it. I'll put the pacemaker in. That was over 5 years ago, Mr. President. My mother's 105 and happily alive. My question to you is, outside the medical criteria for prolonging life for somebody who's elderly, is there any consideration that can be given for a certain spirit, a certain joy of living, of quality of life, or is it just a medical cutoff at a certain age? Now stop and think what we're hearing here. A citizen at the White House is asking the president, essentially, under your plan, can my mother continue to live and experience the joy of life? She's full of life. Under your plan, would my mother get the pacemaker? And this is what the President of the United States told that woman 9.5 years ago.
I don't think that we can make judgments based on people's spirit. That'd be a pretty subjective decision to be making. I think we have to have rules that say that we are going to provide good quality care for all people. End-of-life care is one of the most difficult sets of decisions that we're going to have to make. But understand that those decisions are already being made in one way or another. If they're not being made under Medicare and Medicaid, they're being made by private insurers. At least we can let doctors know, and your mom know, that, you know what, maybe this isn't going to help. Maybe you're better off not having the surgery, but taking the painkiller.
This is just, I can't fathom this. A nationally televised special with the president of the, who's not a doctor, he's not anything, telling this woman, well, government wouldn't do that because government hasn't done that. That's what Medicare and Medicaid means. Well, if they're not being made under Medicare, government, if the decisions aren't being made under Medicaid, government, then they're being made by private insurers, which are regulated by government. At least we can let, now you notice how compassionate Obama got in these last couple sentences. Did you notice he came alive when he thought he was being compassionate and understanding? At least we can let doctors know and your mom know that, you know what, maybe this isn't going to help. Maybe you're better off not living. Maybe you're better off not having the surgery. Here is a painkiller. So there you heard the leader of the free world. Your desire to live, not a factor. We can't use that. You're full of life. Sorry, irrelevant. You love being alive? Sorry. Can't factor that in. Why? Because we don't have the money to pay. Somebody needs to tell Cortez and the rest of these clowns, we don't have the money. This is what Obamacare was going to cost. This is why everybody started talking about death panels. I want to ask you to think about something. We've all been around babies, and many of us have pets, pick them up as puppies. You can't miss in a child. You cannot miss in a newborn anything the absolute thrill and love of being alive. You see it on their faces. You hear it in the laughs in terms of little babies. They just love being alive. It's the natural state until age and maturity and life take over. Start messing around with people's psychology. But in that period where you have raw, unbridled essence of innocence, you've got nothing but pure, sheer joy and happiness. Baby after baby after baby. I realize some of you shrinks are probably shouting as you're right. You don't know what you're talking about. I've done psychiatric studies on little babies, and 90% of them are depressed and wish they hadn't been born. Save it for somebody that's not going to swallow your crap. The same thing with little puppies. It's the thing you notice about them, how damned happy they all are. You get the idea looking at little babies, they actively love the idea of being alive. And now we go from that. We know that's the case, but we don't even want to get that far. We don't want to see the evidence of how much they enjoy being alive. We're going to wipe them out in the womb. We're going to wipe them out shortly after they get out now in Virginia. It's just sick, folks, and it doesn't bode well. If you're a young couple on the verge of having kids, you've got to care about this. When life gets cheapened, when it becomes a political characteristic, when life becomes just a political issue, you know how politics corrupts practically everything that it touches. Well, politics has touched your child. And when the one thing that is the most valuable in the world, human life, when that becomes cheapened to the point that it's of less value than a turtle hatchling or a snail darter or what have you, you'd better recognize there are problems. And we can deal with this without preaching to women. That's not what this is about. The fix for this is not penalizing women or preaching to them. The fix for this is going to be a while, because it's taken us a while to get here. This is going to require a reestablishment of moral boundaries and foundations and a number of other values that the left has systematically sought to obliterate, erase, and wipe out over the course of many decades. Let me take a brief time out. We'll continue with more right after this. Bites 5 and 6. I want you to hear Kathy Tran, who is the House of Delegates in Virginia Democrat who authored this abomination there. This is Monday. These sound bites are for Monday. During a debate, a hearing at the House of Delegates, Delegate Todd Gilbert, who is a Republican, is asking Kathy Tran, the Democrat delegate, about the limits of her bill.
Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth. She has physical signs that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would make at that point. I understand that. I'm asking if your bill allows that. My bill would allow that, yes.
My bill would allow that. It's up to the doctor, and it's up to the woman, it's up to the medical professional. And she wanted to make sure she was understood, she said.
The third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
Okay, but to the end of the third trimester.
Yep, I don't think we have a limit in the bill.
We don't have a limit in the bill. We don't have a limit in the bill. That's Kathy Tran. She's the author of the legislation in Virginia. Let's start on the phones. People want to get in. And there are other things out there, too, but I could not, in good conscience, not lead with this today.